I want to talk about something other than health, but entrepreneurship. I just found some disturbing news a couple of nights ago. Again, being running around with a politician, I found out that Amazon set up a plant in La Vista with 1,000 jobs. Nobody told us about it. We've got the workforce here. We've got the land just sitting here. No one's using it. And we have a black man representing us in District 2. And it's like, did anybody know about this? What's going on? A white person told me about it. That seems to be a problem where we're out of the loop with everything. Anyone want to play with that, Eric? I see the big Cheshire Cat grin on your face.
Various businesses that have been put in place in the surrounding area have been put in areas outside of the North Omaha, outside of North Omaha. And as you mentioned, with all the land and things that are available to erect a business and a facility to then gainfully employ the underemployed or the unemployed folks that live in the North Omaha community. Everyone is looking for, livable wages, and wages that can propel them forward. But the thing is, if transportation is an issue, as you were mentioning about with the vaccine and things like that, it's also going to be an issue with traveling to those jobs in La Vista or traveling to those jobs out in some of the other outlying areas. And so it's going to continue to offer opportunities, but not to the folks who need those opportunities offered to them.
It's interesting, Eric. As I said, the guy who told me about it is white, and even he said, "Well, Vista doesn't need any jobs. They've got enough jobs out there. North Omaha needs the jobs," and he's right.
Yeah, that's how white privilege works, Michael. It's not fair. It's not fair, it's not equal, and it's never going to be. So white privilege and white power, the white power structure, as a professor at UNO, University of Nebraska, you can connect that with Nebraska politics. And that's how the University of Nebraska operates. The, UNO, UNL, UNK, the state itself being majority white and very, very red state is not fair. So we have to outsmart white supremacy. But even when we catch the bus or catch a ride or drive out to that job in La Vista, then we have to deal with, what are you doing here? By the majority white people that will be working in La Vista. We might have to deal with driving while black on our way to or from our job if we don't live in La Vista. And even if we do live in La Vista, we might have to deal with working while black, walking while black. So all of these things really always go back to race. It always goes back to race, and race is white supremacy.
I hate to be such a downer here, but the factory jobs are gone. The Kellogg jobs are gone. The ones that developed a black middle class in Omaha in the 50s and 60s, they left. So you got a workforce here that needs to be utilized. I guess the solution for us is trying to lure tech jobs here. Am I correct, Dannette?
No, I agree. I think there's two major areas that are important, I think, for African Americans. One is certainly healthcare. And two, I think tech jobs. I think that if you don't have the capacity to use tech, you're going to be displaced real soon. I mean, everything is coming through tech. So I think it's a couple things. One, how do we in a healthy way get our community to see that as a vibrant tool for us to use? But also it's linked to our survival. And that is really not okay to not have broadband, which brings up another question about the need for broadband in places like North Omaha and in other places out west, because we know that being able to have the technology that leverages all the information system that comes through. So there's a couple things. One, we've got to be able to have broadband. Number two, we've got to be able to have good information. And number three, we've got to see the value in tech jobs, but tech information. And I think sometimes as African Americans, we may struggle with that.
You know, North Omaha appears to be a food desert and a job desert. Okay. You know, I had found out some facts from a city worker a couple of years ago, and I always throw it out there that demographically, population size, North Omaha would be the third largest city in Nebraska. Think about it. Now, if Grand Island had the problems that North Omaha had, double-digit inflation, or not double-digit inflation, double-digit unemployment, it would be a statewide emergency. And I never can feel an urgency from our state leaders about North Omaha. Am I right? Eric, you know what? You should never play poker. You have such a smile on your face. I know when you're waiting to go for something. Am I wrong?
No, you're not. No, it falls into that category of, you know, it might be a problem, but it's not at my front door, so I can overlook it. You know, I always tell folks, it's like if I went to your home and I saw your child running around and just tearing things up, I might say to myself, wow, look at that little guy. He's doing a lot of damage. But when I leave, I don't care because it's not my house. Now, if you brought little man to my house and he was tearing up my house, now you've got my attention and now there's a problem. So as long as it's not at another person, those individuals' front doors, it may be a problem, but it's not their problem.
Cynthia, any thoughts?
There are North Omahas all throughout the country. North Omahas in Michigan, North Omahas in Illinois, you know, parts of Chicago, parts of Detroit, parts of LA, Kansas City, Atlanta. Well, I don't know about Atlanta. But
no, I agree with you 100%. I've lived in 11 cities in this country, and everyone has a Martin Luther King Boulevard and a North Omaha.
and a freeway that cuts through the Black community. The heart, by the way, the heart of the segregated Black community. Now, what's happening is that these communities are gentrified, right? And so Black people have dispersed in a lot of places, certainly in Omaha, dispersed all throughout the city, which has affected our community. I still live in Northeast Omaha. That has affected our, so again, we have to always be our own advocate. We have to be smarter. We have to be better. We have to be better educated. We have to pull our resources together. One thing we need to do is learn to like each other and learn to respect each other. I heard Minister Farrakhan say years ago, yes, I said the F word, Farrakhan. I heard Farrakhan say years ago, if Black people, if white people knew Black history, they would respect us more. And if Black people knew Black history, we would respect ourselves more and each other more. So that is where the education piece comes in. But because this isn't going to be an ongoing thing. I mean, you know, literally, you know, the 1619 project. So that's 401 years now. And we're still having the same discussion because those people who brought African people here to work, right? And really who pit poor white people against African people and African American people to keep working class people divided, period. They are not, they are not thinking about equality. They're still not thinking about equality, and they're not going to include us. So we have to be our own advocate and come together.
You know, it's a shame that I almost feel we could take this conversation and put it in a time capsule and open it up 20 years from now and we still be having the same discussion.
I hope
so.
not.
Michael, let me tell you a little bit about what a group of us are doing in North Omaha. And there's a young man by the name of Anthony Tony Goins, who is the economic director for the state of Nebraska, like I'm the CEO for DHHS for the state of Nebraska. We are doing some work out in the North Omaha community with some key leaders in that community around a couple of things. One, how do we look at recruitment and retention of top young middle-aged folks to take tech jobs or entrepreneurship opportunities? The second thing is looking at what does housing look like on the 24th Street corridor. And of course, we've been working with Ms. Goodwin around what's going on there. And I've been to Mr. Ewing's museum. I got my first book, 24th and Glory, which I read, which gave me a lot of history about what's going on in North Omaha. But there's a small group of us doing some work in North Omaha, looking at what are some entrepreneurial opportunities, economic development, bringing businesses there in the community. But to do all of that, you got to be able to recruit and retain top African American talent, as well as those people that live here in Omaha and in North Omaha. We've got to have good housing, and for me, that doesn't always mean Section 8 housing, but it's got to be mixed income housing. And then the third thing is really looking at schools and how you create a neighborhood that's thriving. In my lifetime, I've seen something very similar to that in Chicago. The Woodlawn community was an area in Chicago that was much like North Omaha. And yes, it's had some regentrification, but people had to decide in the community that that's what they wanted to do, and they had to fight for it.
Just so you, in case y'all don't know about me, I was born in Harlem, New York.
Oh, yeah, you know.
About gentrification.
Yes, you know about it. You know about it. So
I don't even recognize
there's a group of us that are working. We will be talking more with the governor about some of the work that we think should go on in North Omaha. It's been a real community engagement piece of work. And I've been very excited about what we're doing. I'm learning a lot about Omaha. I'm not from here, but I'm certainly willing to learn. And I know Tony is too. And so we're trying to take what we're learning from the people who are a part of our task force to really put together a really good plan. Now, that's not to say that there hasn't been other people who have done good work in North Omaha. It's about how we leverage off of each other.
You know, one thing I learned as a reporter who tries to be part of the community that he's in, sometimes the Black community is like a barrel of crabs. The ones on the bottom like to pull the ones on the top down. And the ones who are trying to make it got to deal with people dissing them from the bottom. Am I making a bad call there? I see you shaking your head, Dannette, nodding your head. Am I right?
Very true.
Haters are going.
Very true. But I don't think we get discouraged by it. See, maybe I'm
what happens.
I'm an optimist.
Yeah, because we don't get stuff done. When I moved to Denver, Colorado, I went and sought out the NAACP.
Uh-huh.
They only had like 3% Blacks, but they had 2 chapters.
Yeah.
Because a bunch of people couldn't get along together, so they went and formed their own chapter, called it the Cherry Creek NAACP. We can't seem to get along, and that's a big problem. Same thing with forming the Nebraska Association of Black Journalists. I came here and revitalized it. As soon as I left, though, personalities kicked in and people are going at each other. Sometimes we're our own worst enemy. I'm off the.
But I think that has to do with, so, I've seen this in Black Studies. Black Studies is turning 50, in the fall academic year, 2021-22 academic year. We are turning 50 as a department. And having been on UNL's campus, came there specifically to major in Black Studies in 1991, you always saw infighting in the Black Studies department. I taught my first class in Black Studies in 97. At some times, even as an undergrad student, the chair and the faculty are not speaking and all of the rest of that. And it wasn't until I became chair in 2015 And I saw this again, a high chair turnover, like every 3 years, and even more than that, interim chairs a year and here. But what I saw was top-down racism. And top-down racism pits us against each other. And so people fight for scarce resources, but we are made to be enemies of each other. We are made to not trust each other. These are the things that really, really, truly hurt us, because it's really all about leadership. So if you think of it as a family, it's really about the parenting that goes on in the family, whether or not the siblings can get along, whether or not the grandchildren and the great grandchildren can get along. People who have, family reunions regularly and tell these stories, the level of respect that the leadership has and is able to pass that down, that makes a difference. And so that is really our problem. It really always, always, always goes back to enslavement of African people in this country, but the institutional racism, I mean, starting on the plantation, pitting the light and dark against each other, you know.
You
And
know
by
what?
the way,
When we come back, we're going to take a break, Cynthia, and I want to pick up where you left off because I had a situation happen to me about lighter and dark skinned blacks. But right now, we're going to take some commercial time. Sit tight. You guys are doing a great job. That's what I was saying earlier about it's still in our DNA in many ways.